Good morning. I'd like you to close your eyes and picture the story I'm about to tell you. Candace Lightner was on an all-day shopping trip. Her husband waiting for her home to return, and her two children were out, one at a church carnival and the other at a friend's house swimming. Upon Candace's return, she was approached by her father and her ex-husband in her driveway. Her father comes up to her, looking at the ground, and says, "Candace, we've lost Carrie." She looks at her father and says, "Oh, Dad, don't worry about it. She's probably just out in the neighborhood playing." Her father looks up at her with tears running down his face and says, "No, Candace. Carrie was run over and killed by a drunk driver." Candace Lightner is now the founder of Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. Shortly after, she learned that this man that ran over and killed her daughter was out on bail on his 5th DUI offense. I want you to put yourself in Carrie's shoes. And what would you do if one of your loved ones was killed by someone out on bail on their 5th time offense? Today, I'm going to talk to you about DUI laws, specifically in Texas and Idaho. I'm going to give you some statistics. I'm going to give you reasons why we should enforce stricter punishments on first-time DUI offenders. Let me begin with the laws in Texas and Idaho. Texas and Idaho laws while drinking and driving, according to the Department of Transportation, are as follows. The legal intoxication limit for both states is 0.08 blood alcohol concentration. Now, before I list some of the punishments for DUIs, keep in mind this fact. DUI offenders have the option for a plea bargain, which lessens the DUI offense to a wet reckless, which is reckless driving involving alcohol. So for first-time offenders in Texas, you may receive up to a $2,000 fine, and in Idaho, maybe a $1,000 fine. In both states, you may receive from 3 days in jail to 180 days in jail, and you may possibly have your license suspended. On the second offense in Texas, you may receive a $4,000 fine. In Idaho, a $2,000 fine. And in both states, you may receive from 10 days to a year in jail and possibly have your license suspended. And for your third offense, you may receive a $10,000 fine in Texas and you may receive a $5,000 fine in Idaho. In both states, you may receive 30 days to 5 years in jail. And in both states, you may possibly have your license suspended. In Texas, more than 2 offenses in 5 years, you are required to add a special ignition switch to your vehicle. In Idaho, on your first offense, it's your option. Now that I've gone over some of the DUI laws, I'll go over some of the statistics that will prove how serious DUIs really are. So the following statistics of impaired driving facts come from the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention. In 2010, 10,228 people were killed in alcohol-impaired crashes, accounting for 1/3, which is 31% of all traffic-related deaths. Of the 1,210 traffic deaths of children 0 to 14 years of age, 211, which is 17% of these innocent children, were killed by a drunk driver. And in 2010, 1.4 million people were arrested for drunk driving. 1.4 million. Now that I provide you with statistics which prove that drinking and driving is a big problem in the United States, let me share with you why we should have stricter punishments for first-time DUI offenders. Drunk drivers are a danger to everyone. By enforcing stricter punishments for first-time offenders, we can potentially save lives. We must hold drunk drivers accountable for making the decision to get behind the wheel after drinking and not having a plan. In order to end needless suffering and pain of innocent families, we must send DUI offenders straight to jail without all the options and keep them there for longer periods of time. And finally, we must enforce stricter laws to ensure DUI offenders think twice before they act. By sending them straight to jail on the first-time offense, they won't have the option to be out on the streets a couple of days later drinking and driving. And even more importantly, they will not have the choice to become a second-time repeat offender. Now that you know why we should enforce stricter laws for drinking and driving, let me bring you back to mind why. Today, I have provided you with some laws in effect for Texas and Idaho. I have given you facts on statistics for drinking and driving. And lastly, I told you why we need to enforce stricter punishment for first-time offenders. The information I provided you today speaks for itself. I ask of you to take any opportunity you have to become part of the solution to end or at least minimize DUIs and repeat offenders. Thank you for your time.